Hey guys, my name is Batimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. And to get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a YouTube message. So the first question for today comes from Alexander, and it is, how would you feel about having tear gas as a grenade type? With it, you could also get tear gas mask for a gadget. The tear gas would also slowly take down the health of players that are caught inside of it. Well, I don't know if you know this, but tear gas is considered a non-lethal weapon. This is the reason why you see police forces around the world every once in a while using it, because they don't want to kill the people. They don't want to cause long-lasting bodily harm. It sucks. Like, you do not want to get tear gas. Like, it's a miserable experience, and I personally never want to have that happen to me. But it shouldn't kill anyone. I think there are maybe some instances where people have died to a tear gas attack, but I think that's because of accidents or something malfunctioned. But for the most part, that's not its intention. And so if they did have this in Battlefield 4, while I don't think it needs to do any damage to the player, what I would kind of like to see is that it would just fully suppress anyone that was inside of it. So their screen goes all blurry, they have a lot of weapon sway, and if that was added into the game and it lasted for a fair amount of time, that could be a perfect grenade type at trying to clear rooms. You guys know right now grenade spam can be a little crazy, and there are a lot of moments when I just wish I had some sort of grenade that would allow me to push into a room and have some confidence in there, and where if there are people camping, they're now at a disadvantage because I've used this particular gadget or this particular grenade type. I kind of assumed that was going to be how the flashbang was going to work, and I know that DICE is trying to kind of buff that a little bit, but the way things stand right now, the flashbang is almost useless. It kind of blinds the enemy for maybe a second or two, and then they're back to normal, and like I don't even know if it suppresses. I could be wrong, I don't use it very often, and I honestly don't get suppressed or flashbanged all that often as well. And so if they did decide to add this into the game, or if they just buffed the flashbangs themselves, I would love that addition, because there are just so many moments in my head where I know that if I had some sort of grenade that would suppress my enemy, or at least suppress them for a fair amount of time, I could then rush in, use my advantage. You know, I have pinpoint-like accuracy, their weapons are bouncing all over the place, they have that suppression going on. I think that would be amazing and a nice addition. I realize that there's kind of a blending of two different grenades. You have the incendiary grenade, which is kind of zone control, and also flashbangs. So it'd be kind of that middle ground where it would zone them out and they would kind of have to move away from it, but at the same time it wouldn't cause any damage. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think this would be a nice addition to the game? Do you think it's overkill and there's already plenty of grenades in the game? Let me know down below. I'm curious to know what you guys think. The next question comes from Darwin, and it is, what do you think about the ability to use civilian vehicles? So I think DICE has already come out and said that the reason why they don't allow you to use civilian vehicles is because they already have all these military vehicles that you can use. You got the Jeeps, ATVs, you got the motors, the dirt bikes, all these different tanks. And so it's not necessary to use the civilian vehicles because there's all of these military vehicles all scattered around the map. And I do understand that mentality, it does make sense. But at the same time, I also kind of feel like this was sort of a missed opportunity on the part of DICE to further the immersion factor. DICE has kind of been all about immersion and levolution in Battlefield 4. Not just the large levolution moments like the skyscraper falling down, but also the smaller levolution, such as going through one of the metal detectors and the alarm system going off. When you hit a car, the alarm will go off. All of these smaller things just to make the world feel more alive and not just a static arena like a lot of other first-person shooters out there. And I'm not trying to insinuate that because you can't get into civilian cars that breaks that immersion, but I just kind of feel like it was a missed opportunity, because if you did have the option to slowly drive around in these civilian vehicles, it would just kind of take it a step further. Not only that, but if you had the ability to get into larger civilian vehicles, like a truck that was toting around a massive crate, that actually could add to the dynamic of the map itself, where it's not just a vehicle, oh, that's cool, he's driving around in a Ferrari. No, if there was a truck that had a crate, you could bring that crate next to an objective that you were trying to defend, and all of a sudden, you now have a massive obstacle that the enemy has to work around, and also could provide you cover. And so I just kind of think it was a slight missed opportunity. And while I don't think that they're really going to do it for Battlefield 4, maybe they will do it in a future DLC, you know, who knows. But But for a future Battlefield game, if they added it on in there and they also made it so that it had an influence on the match itself, I think it would be a nice addition to the game. The next question comes from Beetle, and it is, what do you think if bolt-action sniper rifles had more realistic bullet velocities in the upwards of 800 meters per second? Well, this would definitely be a pretty large buff for the bolt-action rifles, and while I don't want to say that they would all of a sudden become blatantly overpowered, you would see more recon players out on the battlefield using these weapons. The way that bullet velocity works right now is that it doesn't have any influence on bullet drop, it just influences how quickly the bullet will reach its destination. And so if you are trying to line up that long distance shot and you are using a weapon that has a very slow bullet velocity, if the target is moving, you have to aim pretty far in front of the enemy or predict where they're going to be heading to line up that headshot. And so if they did decide to increase the overall bullet velocity of all the bolt-action rifles, it would become a hell of a lot easier to use them. You wouldn't have to make those predictions. You'd pretty much just aim at their head for the most part. I mean, you would still need to compensate for bullet travel speed, but it wouldn't be as nearly as bad as it is right now. And with that being said, I don't know if I would be in favor of this, because I'm kind of split. On the one hand, I'm not really a huge fan of sniping in Battlefield 4. Back in Battlefield 3, I loved it. I felt like I was a competent sniper, I understood the mechanics, it just stuck with me, and I loved it. Like, I felt like I knew what I was doing, and it was an amazing experience. But in Battlefield 4, I don't know what they've done. It could be the netcode, it could be the game mechanics themselves, it could be the bullet velocity. I don't think that there's a lot of difference between the two games in the velocity themselves. I don't know why it hasn't clicked in Battlefield 4, but I just don't enjoy it as much. And maybe it's just because I'm in a different phase of my life right now and I don't enjoy sniping as much as I used to, but I don't think that's the case. I just think that there's something about the current game mechanics that don't click with me. And so if they did do this, on the one hand, I probably would snipe a lot more, but on the other, I honestly think that this may be pushing it a little bit too far and sniping might be too easy and we may see even more snipers on the battlefield. And so I'm kind of curious to know what you guys think. Would this be a step in the right direction, or do you think that it would be a little bit too powerful and you're not too thrilled with the concept of having more recons on your team? The next question comes from Eric, and it is, I was wondering why in your PlanetSide 2 videos you choose to play as the Vanu. A lot of other YouTubers seem to prefer them, and I was just wondering why this is the case. I play PlanetSide 2 a lot, and all three factions have their little niche. Well, I can't speak on behalf of other YouTubers or other players of PlanetSide 2, but the reason why I jumped in and picked the Vanu was because I had a bunch of friends that decided that that was the faction that they wanted to play. It wasn't for any lore reasons, it wasn't because I thought they looked cool. I mean, they do, they're purple and they fire laser beams, but that wasn't the reason why I chose them. I wanted to play with friends. Like, usually when I pick up a game and I have a bunch of friends that are playing a certain faction or they're playing on a certain side, I'm gonna go over there and join them. And then because your progression doesn't transfer between the two different factions, I didn't feel much of a desire to kind of go play the other ones more consistently. Like, every once in a while I'll go play some NC and some TR. But because I want to unlock new things and I've already got things rolling with the Vanu, I just kind of stick with that. One critique I have been kind of hearing is that certain factions are better than others and that they're overpowered, and they're like, why are you playing the Vanu? They're blatantly overpowered. And like, I honestly don't understand that critique, because at least from my playtime, from when the game launched all the way until right now, I've never felt like one group has been overpowered. There may be some scenarios where their weapons or their vehicles outperform ours, but that's kind of the beauty of having a game like this. The one thing that I love about PlanetSide is that they're not a carbon copy. All factions are not a carbon copy of each other. Like, they are better in some situations, and that's cool. It's not like Battlefield or other first-person shooters where they're literally the same weapons but just with a different skin. Like, that's fine. I understand that. That makes for some very fun gameplay, but that's what makes PlanetSide 2 so unique from other games out there, is that if you do play as a different faction, it has a different feel to it. It has a different play style, and it's amazing. And so I've never really understood that critique, and I know I'm kind of deviating from your normal question, but I always found that very strange, that people kind of criticize what faction you play because they think it's overpowered compared to the others. But yeah, that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. But until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.